When a god from another star crashes to our world, his living hammer becomes the only hope to stop a monster older than galaxies. But every strike brings the end closer. For 1,000 cycles, the twin moons of Veronine had kept the skies calm. No storms, no thunder, no lightning. The people told stories of such things, but only as myths, until the night the heavens cracked. It began as a thin, jagged wound in the sky, blacker than the void, pulsing with a deep, alien heartbeat. The moon's glow dimmed, the air thickened, and the ground itself seemed to hold its breath. Then came the fire. Shards of burning metal screamed downward, embedding themselves in the crystal streets of Zereth Prime. The air stank of scorched stone and ozone. People ran, but there was no escaping the sound. A low, endless roar that wasn't wind, wasn't thunder. It was something alive. The fall of Thor. From the rift fell a figure, tall, broad-shouldered, his armor a living lattice of black and silver plates that shifted like breathing skin. In his right hand was Mjolnir, the hammer of storms. Its head a prism of dark crystal, veins of molten light crawling across its surface, each pulse in perfect rhythm with the wound in the sky. He struck the crystal plane outside the city with such force that the ground rippled like water. A shockwave tore through the streets, shattering windows and toppling spires. When the dust cleared, he was kneeling in the crater, steam rising from his armor. His eyes opened, not human eyes, but twin rings of burning white light, rotating slowly like the orbits of moons. This was Thor of the Stormforge, not of Midgard, but of the star realm Svarn, last of his kind. The first witness, Kale, a scavenger barely 17 cycles old, had been picking through the wreckage of a collapsed sky tower when the shadow fell. His instincts screamed to run. His curiosity made him stay. He slid down the edge of the crater, boots crunching on glassy shards. The heat radiating from Thor was intense, like standing beside a star engine. Before Kale could speak, the ground trembled. The hunters, they came through the rift in silence. Biomech hunters, their bodies a grotesque fusion of bone, black alloy, and twitching cables. Their faces were smooth plates of obsidian, featureless except for a single vertical slit glowing red. They didn't attack the city. They didn't even look at the people. They were here for Thor. The hammer's call. Thor rose, Mjolnir dragging behind him, leaving molten scars in the crystal. Every time it touched the ground, the air vibrated with a deep, resonant hum. The hunters spread out, encircling the crater. Thor spoke a single word in the tongue of Svarn, a sound like metal grinding against stone. The hammer answered with a low, hungry pulse. The first hunter lunged. The first strike. The hammer moved faster than Kale's eyes could follow. It connected with the hunter's chest, and the creature didn't just fall. It disintegrated, its body unraveling into threads of light that flowed into Mjolnir's core. The weapon's glow brightened. Kale realized with a chill that it had fed. The swarm. The other hunters attacked at once. Thor became a storm, each swing of Mjolnir tearing through metal and bone, each impact feeding the weapon until its glow was almost blinding. But Kale noticed something else. With every strike, the rift above them widened. The glimpse beyond. One hunter broke through, slamming into Thor's side. The hammer's glow flickered. Kale grabbed a shard of crystal and hurled it at the hunter. It bounced harmlessly off, but it was enough to draw its attention. The hunter turned toward Kale. Thor didn't hesitate. He tore the creature away and crushed it under the hammer. The ground split, a shock wave rippling outward. Kale looked up at the rift and saw something moving in the darkness beyond. Not a hunter, not even close. Something bigger. The streets of Zereth Prime burned. Plasma fires licked the crystal towers, and the air was thick with the metallic tang of molten stone. Above, the rift pulsed wider, its black edges bleeding light into the void. Thor of Svarn moved through the chaos like a wounded storm. His armor, once sleek and regal, now shifted restlessly, plates locking and unlocking as if bracing for something unseen. Mjolnir dragged behind him, its molten veins glowing brighter with every step, leaving a trail of scorched crystal in his wake. Kale followed at a distance, weaving through shattered market stalls and overturned hover carts. He couldn't look away from the hammer. It wasn't just glowing, it was breathing. The alley ambush. Thor turned into a narrow service alley, steam hissing from ruptured coolant pipes. The shadows moved. 3 biomech hunters dropped from the rooftops, their bone blades scraping sparks from walls. They didn't roar. They didn't speak. They simply advanced. Thor raised Mjolnir, and the weapon latched on his arm. Molten tendrils of metal wrapped around his gauntlet, fusing hammer to flesh. The runes along its head flared, and black veins spread up Thor's forearm, crawling toward his neck. The first hunter lunged, defeating. Mjolnir swung in a perfect arc, striking the hunter's chest. The impact was like a miniature supernova, a burst of white-gold light that swallowed the creature whole. Kale saw it this time. The light didn't just destroy the hunter. It flowed back into the hammer, threads of energy winding into its core. Thor's breathing deepened, layered with a second, inhuman rhythm. The second hunter attacked. Another strike. More light. More feeding. By the time the third hunter fell, Mjolnir's glow was almost blinding. The whisper. Kale pressed himself against the wall, heart pounding. He could hear something now, a low, rhythmic whisper, not from Thor, but from the hammer itself. It wasn't speaking in any language Kale knew, but the meaning was clear. More. Thor staggered forward, the hammer still fused his arm. He didn't look back at the bodies. He didn't look at Kale, but Kale followed anyway. The Market of Shadows. They emerged into the Market of Shadows, an underground bazaar lit by flickering hollow lanterns. Merchants shouted for them to leave, their voices drowned out by the distant rumble of collapsing buildings above. Thor ignored them, heading for the far exit. The hunters came again, not 3 this time, but a dozen, their claws scraping against the crystal floor. The storm unleashed. Thor moved like a force of nature. Mjolnir tore through the air, each swing leaving trails of molten light. Hunters shattered, dissolved, and burned away, their energy feeding the weapon until it pulsed like a newborn star. But Kale noticed something else. With each kill, Thor's movements became less human. His stance widened, his head tilted unnaturally, and when he roared, his voice carried an echo that didn't belong to any living thing. The hammer wasn't just feeding. It was changing him. The rift's pulse. Above them, the rift pulsed in time with Mjolnir strikes. Every blow widened the fracture, the screaming from beyond growing louder. Kale realized with a chill that the hunters weren't trying to kill Thor. They were trying to provoke him. The more he fought, the more the hammer fed. The more it fed, the wider the rift became. The close call. One hunter broke through the storm, leaping at Kale. He barely had time to raise his arms before Thor was there, smashing the creature into the ground so hard the floor cracked. For a moment, their eyes met. Kale saw something in Thor's gaze. Not gratitude, not recognition, but a warning. Then Thor turned away, Mjolnir dragging behind him, still fused to his arm. The final blow of the night. They reached the far end of the market, where a massive gate led to the outer districts. The hunters followed. Thor stopped, turned, and raised the hammer high. The runes on his armor flared, the black in his veins spreading to his face. When Mjolnir came down, the shockwave tore through the market like a tidal wave. Stalls exploded, walls crumbled, and the hunters were obliterated in a single, blinding flash. When the light faded, Thor was gone. Only the molten scar in the ground remained, and the echo of the hammer's whisper, still hungry. The rift above Varanine was no longer a wound. It was an eye, vast, black, rimmed with burning light. Kale stood in the ruins of the Market of Shadows, chest heaving, the echo of Mjolnir's last strike still rattling his bones. The molten scar in the ground glowed faintly, like the ember of a dying forge. But the sky was alive. The hum in the bones. At first, Kale thought it was the ringing in his ears. But no, this was deeper. A low, endless hum that seemed to vibrate through the crystal streets, through the air, through his bones. He looked up. The rift pulsed in perfect rhythm with Mjolnir's glow. Even though Thor was nowhere in sight, Kale could feel the weapon's heartbeat. And then he realized something that made his stomach twist. The hum wasn't coming from the rift. It was coming through it. The shape in the dark. Beyond the burning edges of the rift, something moved. Not the jerky, insect-like motion of the biomech hunters. This was slow, deliberate. A silhouette the size of a continent shifted in the void, its surface rippling like liquid metal. As it turned, Kale caught a glimpse of what might have been an eye, a sphere of molten gold, larger than the capital itself. The hum deepened. Kale staggered back, clutching his head. Images flashed in his mind. Worlds reduced to ash, suns snuffed out like candles, oceans boiling away under a shadow that blotted out the stars. He didn't know how he knew its name, but he did. The World Eater. The return of Thor. A shockwave rippled through the street. Kale spun around. Thor was back. His armor was different now, the plates shifting and locking into jagged, storm-like ridges. The black veins had spread across his neck and jaw, and his eyes were no longer rings of white light. They were solid, glowing orbs filled with something ancient. Mjolnir was still fused to his arm, its glow now a blinding white gold. "You've seen it," Thor said, his voice layered with an echo that didn't belong to any living thing. Kale swallowed. "What is it?" Thor's gaze flicked to the rift. "The end of your world. The truth of the hammer." They moved quickly through the shattered streets, Thor cutting down stray hunters with single, devastating blows. Between strikes, he spoke. Mjolnir was forged in the heart of a dying star by the gods of Isvarn, the storm forged. It was meant to be a weapon of judgment, a key to open the gates between realms. But it had a flaw. It was alive. It fed on the life force of those it struck, storing that energy until it could release it in a single world-shattering blow. And every time it fed, it sent out a signal, a call to the World Eater. The exile. Thor had been one of the Storm-forged champions, chosen to wield Mjolnir in the wars against the Voidborn. But when he learned what the hammer truly was, he stole it and fled, hoping to keep it hidden. The gods called him a traitor. The hunters were their hounds, sent to retrieve the weapon. But the World Eater didn't care about gods or traitors. It only cared about the signal. And now, thanks to the battles in Zereth Prime, the signal was strong enough to be heard across galaxies. The choice. They reached the edge of the city, where the crystal plains stretched toward the horizon. In the distance, Kale could see the twin moons dimming, their lights swallowed by the growing shadow of the rift. Thor stopped. "If I keep fighting, it will come faster," he said. "If I stop, the hunters will take the hammer and bring it to it themselves." Kale looked at him. "So what do we do?" Thor's eyes narrowed. "We make it come on our terms." The signal grows. He raised Mjolnir high. The runes along its head flared, and the hum in Kale's bones became a roar. The ground split, crystal spires erupting from the plains as lightning, real lightning, tore through the sky for the first time in centuries. The rift widened, its edges burning white. The silhouette beyond moved closer, its golden eye locking onto the planet. Kale's breath caught. It wasn't just looking at them. It was hungry. The last words before the storm. Thor lowered the hammer, the glow dimming slightly. He turned to Kale. "When it arrives," he said, "you run. You hide. You survive." Kale shook his head. "I'm not leaving you." Thor's expression didn't change. "You don't understand. When it comes, there will be nowhere to run." The hum became a scream. The sky tore wider, and the World Eater began to emerge. The twin moons were gone, not set, blotted out by the shadow of the rift. From the crystal plains to the highest spires of Zereth Prime, every eye was fixed on the wound in the sky. Beyond it, the golden eye of the World Eater burned like a second sun, unblinking, patient, and impossibly vast. The biomech hunters no longer came in squads. They came in swarms, hundreds at a time, their bone blades glinting, their movements perfectly synchronized. The first impact. The outer ring defense towers, silent for centuries, roared to life. Plasma spears screamed upward, carving green fire through the swarm. The first volley tore hunters apart midair. The second volley struck the rift itself and vanished into its blackness without a ripple. The hunters didn't slow. The city's awakening. Zereth Prime had never been a city of soldiers, but it was a city of survivors. The Sky Guard, pilots who once ferried trade ships between the moons, now dove their gliders into the swarm, pulse cannons blazing. The Forge Guilds, artisans who shaped crystal into art, now hurled spear-length shards sharp enough to pierce hunter armor. Even the shadow markets rose, their smugglers unleashing contraband explosives that lit the streets in bursts of violet flame. For the first time since the rift opened, the hunters met resistance. Thor in the storm. Kale found him in the heart of the chaos. Thor stood atop the shattered crown of a sky tower. Mjolnir fused to his arm, lightning spiraling around him in arcs that leapt from building to building. Every swing tore hunters apart, the hammer's glow painting the city in gold. But Kale saw the cost. The black veins had consumed Thor's entire body, his armor shifting like a living storm, his voice, when he roared, layered with whispers that didn't belong to him. Mjolnir wasn't just feeding anymore. It was claiming him. The turning point. A hunter the size of a dropship smashed into the tower, sending Thor and Kale tumbling into the streets below. The massive hunter unfolded, limbs splitting into bladed whips, chest opening to reveal a molten core. Thor charged. Mjolnir struck the core, and instead of shattering, the energy inside the hunter poured into the hammer in a torrent of blinding light. The shockwave flattened everything within 100 meters. When Kale's vision cleared, the hunter was gone. So was half the street. The worshippers. Kale expected the remaining hunters to attack. They didn't. They knelt. Every single one of them, dozens, maybe hundreds, dropped to one knee, heads bowed toward Thor. Kale's stomach turned. Why are they? They know, Thor said, voice deeper than before. They see what I'm becoming. Kale's throat tightened. What are you becoming? Thor didn't answer. The World Eater's shadow. The hum became a roar. The ground shook. Kale looked up and saw the impossible. The World Eater was closer now, its golden eye filling half the sky. Tendrils of molten metal reached through the rift, curling toward the planet like claws. The twin moons were gone completely, their lights swallowed by the shadow of the thing that had devoured 1,000 worlds. And it was looking directly at Thor. The last stand begins. The defense towers fired again, plasma bolts striking the tendrils. The impacts lit the sky in bursts of green and gold, but the tendrils didn't slow. The Sky Guard dove through the gaps, gliders weaving between the tendrils, firing everything they had. On the ground, the Forge Guilds and Shadow Markets fought side by side, holding the streets against the hunters that still attacked civilians. Kale grabbed a fallen pulse rifle and joined them, firing into the swarm. But no matter how many they killed, more came. Thor's decision. Thor stood in the center of it all, Mjolnir glowing like a newborn star. Kale fought his way to him. We can't hold them. Thor's eyes, now pure white, locked on the rift. We're not going to hold them. He raised the hammer. Lightning spiraled upward, striking the tendrils. The World Eater's roar shook the city to its foundations. Kale realized what Thor was doing. He wasn't trying to stop it. He was calling it closer. The sky was gone. In its place loomed the World Eater, a living eclipse, its molten gold eye fixed on Veronine like a predator studying prey. Its tendrils, each the width of a mountain, reached through the rift and pierced the crystal plains. Wherever they touched, the ground blackened, cracked, and collapsed into glowing chasms. The hum Kale had felt for hours was now a deafening roar, rattling his teeth, shaking the air, making the very bones of the city vibrate. The planet's death throes. Zereth Prime was breaking apart. Sky towers toppled like felled trees, their crystal spires shattering into clouds of razor-sharp shards. The defense towers fired until their cores overheated and exploded, taking entire blocks with them. The Sky Guard made one last dive, their gliders weaving between the tendrils, firing plasma bolts into the World Eater's hide. The bolts vanished on impact, swallowed by the creature's impossible mass. On the ground, The Forge Guilds and Shadow Markets fought side by side, holding the streets against the biomech hunters that still poured from the rift. But everyone knew it. They weren't fighting to win. They were fighting to buy time. Thor's transformation. Kale found him at the heart of the chaos. Thor stood in the middle of a shattered plaza. Mjolnir fused completely to his arm. The weapon's glow now, a blinding white that made it hard to look directly at him. The black veins had consumed his entire body, his armor shifting and twisting like a living storm. His eyes were no longer rings of light. They were twin orbs of pure lightning. Kale's breath caught. "Thor, what's happening to you?" Thor's voice was layered with a dozen echoes. "The hammer is taking what it needs." Kale shook his head. "It's taking you." Thor didn't deny it. The choice no one wanted. A tendril slammed into the plaza, sending Kale sprawling. Thor didn't move. He looked up at the World Eater, then down at Mjolnir. "One strike," he said. "All the energy it's taken, released at once." Kale's heart pounded. "Will it kill it?" Thor's gaze didn't waver. "It will kill something." Kale understood. The hammer's release could destroy the World Eater, or tear the planet apart. The final push. The hunters sensed what was coming. They surged toward Thor in a frenzy, their movements no longer precise but desperate. Kale grabbed a fallen pulse rifle and fired until the barrel overheated, cutting down anything that got close. The Skyguard dove low, strafing the plaza with plasma fire. The Forge Guilds hurled crystal spears from the rooftops. Thor moved through it all like a storm given flesh, Mjolnir tearing through hunters in arcs of molten light. Each kill fed the hammer, its glow growing so bright it cast shadows sharper than blades. The eye of the beast. The World Eater's golden eye filled the sky above the plaza. It blinked, a slow, deliberate motion, and Kale felt the temperature drop. A tendril the size of a tower descended, curling toward Thor like a serpent. Thor didn't step back. He raised Mjolnir high, lightning spiraling around him, the runes on his armor flaring so bright they burned into Kale's vision. The last words. Kale stumbled toward him. "If you do this," Thor cut him off. "If I don't, there's nothing left to save." For a moment, the echoes in his voice faded, and Kale heard the man beneath the storm. "Run," Thor said. Kale didn't move. The strike. The tendril struck. Thor brought Mjolnir down. The impact was not sound, it was everything. Light exploded outward in a sphere that swallowed the plaza, the city, the plains. The shockwave tore through the tendril, up into the rift, and into the World Eater's eye. The creature roared, a sound so vast it felt like the planet itself was screaming. The rift convulsed, its edges burning white, then black, then white again. The cut. Kale was thrown backward, tumbling through the air, the world a blur of light and shadow. When he hit the ground, the roar was gone. The hum was gone. The sky was